Okay, folks, good morning and welcome to our webinar regarding navigating compliance certifier scopes. This has been sort of something that's a lead on from something that I did earlier on last year. I think what I should do though, just to get started and just to ensure we cover all the formalities, I'll just introduce myself again. I'm Dwayne Bennet, and indeed I am a compliance certifier with the scope of acutely toxic substances for certified handlers. Indeed, I do work for this chemical consultancy company known as Chemsafety. Okay, so that's pretty much me. So if you are watching our webinar live, there is a Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen where you can post any questions, which I will answer at the end. Our details will also be on the follow-up email, which will also include a link to the recording of today's session and some online resources as well. Fantastic. So let's get started. So the next thing that I probably want to allude to now would be just to have a wee look at the, where are we? It's going to work for me. Yes, indeed. Okay. So yes, indeed. So we're just going to have a wee look at that register of compliance certifiers. So the bits that I'll be talking about today will be literally all of the different scopes or different types of compliances there are. So firstly, we'll start off with, of course, what is a compliance certifier, and then we'll just have a quick recap of that register of compliance certifiers, as you've seen previously on that slide. We'll also just talk about the different types of compliance certification, and I'll probably just reiterate some of the things that we're actually able to provide at Chemsafety, some of the compliances that we also can provide personally for you, and also just cover those what you would call the scopes that we're actually involved in. And then we'll just talk about how we're able to find the different scopes and who it is that we can that can help us. Now, there's a few things that you'll be probably quite interested in, and a thing to note would be just to note the number of people that are actually available for these services throughout the entire country, and you're probably quite surprised. And also, it's probably going to answer a few questions around the reason why it's hard to find one or why no one's available and all of that. So that's something we'll allude to as we continue on in today's session. So, yes, indeed, I hear you ask, what is a compliance certifier? Okay, so just from the, just having a look at the actual WorkSafe website there, and this is basically what they have written in there. They have written in, it is, as it states here, a compliance certifier is an individual or non-individual, or body corporate, authorized by WorkSafe to issue compliance certificates. A compliance certificate confirms that an individual, site and or equipment is compliant with the health and safety at work hazardous substances regulations. Okay, so that's pretty much what a compliance certifier is in a nutshell. So just moving on from that, again, this is the slide that we saw previously. And again, like something that I mentioned in November's webinar that I did last year, and this is about the fact that we do get quite a lot of, and even still after that webinar, we still get a lot of people contacting us, trying to be certified for certain things that are beyond our scope. And often people would also sort of say, well, I looked on the website and it says your name that you can be you're a compliance certifier. And it's just important just to reiterate that we are compliance certifiers, but we do cover a specific range. Our scope is very specific to certain industries and certain areas. So I think that's just an important thing just to reiterate at this stage. So let's have a wee look at this. Okay, so again, types of compliance certifiers. So an easy way of finding this is just to, of course, go to that website and you'll see where it says all certificate types. Literally just click on that and apply filter. And what you'll find is you'll have these as the list of compliance certifiers that you can find. So in other words, these are the types of certificates that you can get compliance for. So certified handler, location, stationary container systems, tank wagons and transportable containers, approved fillers, cylinders, and also explosives. this red ring here, these are literally the, I guess you can call the scopes or the types of compliance we offer at Chemsafety. So in slides to come, we will cover this in depth on what it is that we cover, what our scope is, what our scopes aren't, and that should give you a good understanding, or just let you understand exactly what our capabilities are and what we're able to provide, the services we can provide to you. So let's have a wee look at the very first one on the list there, certified handler. And indeed, like I keep saying, this was something from 8 months ago now, it says there. So yes, indeed, that was something, oh, so 24th of November, that was undertaken on 2022. So literally with that webinar though, I was also covering worker training requirements and certified handler requirements. So there's a wee bit that I touched on in that particular webinar, but it seemed that there was a wee bit of popularity around that, just so I thought that would sort of elaborate more so on those scopes. So just looking at the next little bit there, and also just a quick reminder, we have upcoming course dates. Look at that, and that's taking us all the way through. So that's been updated too, which is quite great. So again, just a quick reminder, there are still spots available in our Christchurch course on the 22nd of September. I think we're cutting it a wee bit fine for the 7th of September course in Wellington, unfortunately, though. But definitely 21st of September. And of course, if you don't live in Christchurch or Wellington, or if you need to attend from another part of the country, that's not a problem at all. We also undertake this training via Teams. So that's not a problem at all. You can pretty much attend from anywhere in the country. Just let us know, give us a wee, flick us a wee email, and we'll get you all sorted out there for the certified handler stuff. Okay, so next thing, just quickly to talk about as well there, of course, the 5 types, types of subclasses anyway, subclasses of compliance certifiers. When it comes to certified handlers, that is. So we have there are, you can be, in other words, you can get certified handler certification for agrochemicals, for explosives, and just to make sure everyone understands that we do not have the scope to cover certified handlers for explosives, but that is, of course, one of the subclasses there. Fumigants, industrial acutely toxic substances, and also vertebrate toxic agents as well. So information regarding certified handlers can be found in Part 4, Part 13, and Part 14 of the Health and Safety at Work Hazardous Substances Regulations. Now, it's just very important to remember, and this is another thing that we get quite often, people contact us saying we need handlers certificate, DG handlers, approved handlers, all these kind of things. And basically, when we follow up with them, we have a wee chat to them, we look at their inventory, and what we find is they kind of didn't really need the certified handler training at all. They had no 6.1A or B substances on site. But that's still fine that they got in touch with us, because it just meant that we were able to remind them that there are requirements around Regulation 4.5 anyway. So even if it's not a 6.1 or 6.1A or B, there are obligations for the PCB to ensure that worker training has been undertaken for these staff on site with regards to hazardous substances. So that's that Regulation 4.5 thing. Okay. So just a quick reminder there. So let's just check it out. Let's just sort of navigate our way around what it is that we actually need to do, how we're actually able to find the certified handlers that we need. So of course, we're on our certified handler website from WorkSafe, and you will change where it says all certificate types, we'll change that to certified handlers, and then we will click on apply filter. So that's also very important that we click on apply filter. Once that has happened, you'll have certified handler there. And then what you'll need to do is, so in other words, what I'm trying to get at here is you can't just go certified handler types and then go straight down to that drop box, because nothing will happen. You need to apply filter, and then you can go to the next drop box where it says, what type of subtype are you looking into? Are you interested in agrochemicals? Do you need certification for the possum baits or the VTAs or any of that kind of stuff? And then you apply the filter. Once you've done that, in my example here, I've just chosen toxic substances, which is those industrial acutely toxic substances that were in the list on the previous slide. And then you apply the filter then as well. And once you apply that filter, you can also use the all regions drop box. Now, I'll just bring up the next slide about that. Now, and just going back actually, with that all regions, what this means is that the certified handler, if they're not based in that particular region, they can make themselves available to all regions in New Zealand if they want to. But what this means is that if you do require their services and they live in a different location than yourself, it's likely you'll have to pay for travel for them to come to your site to undertake any of the work. So I think that's something I did mention last time also. So just looking across there. So for us to understand, or for you to understand exactly what area they're from, you'd have to actually click on on the actual person themselves and then see their details. So with my one there, you see the details, and of course you can see there, it's quite obvious that I'm based in Canterbury, but I'm willing to travel to any of these other regions to undertake any work. Also, just an important thing to note with the actual certified handler or with the compliance certifier bits and pieces that you can see on that slide, just gives you a rundown of the authorization date, start expiry, etc., certification type, and all of that stuff as well. So moving on from that slide, we can also see that we have has a wee drop down at the bottom. So you'll keep scrolling down on my area, and you'll see there. My one's a wee bit bare. It just has certified handler. So I specialize in certified handler certification. It's my scope of authorization, and I'll show you Elizabeth and Janet's scopes, which are a little more impressive, more of a list that we can choose from. Whereas with my one there, as you can see there, if you click on that little cross there, it'll bring up the scope of my authorization. Okay, so and so in this area here, you'll see what I'm actually able to certify for. And in most cases, you'll see that these conditions. There are conditions up here. Like for fumigants, I do have that scope of authorization for fumigants. However, it is limited to ethylene dinitrile, and it's limited to these life cycles: storage, use, transport, storage, use, disposal, and transportation. Now, for the other industrial acutely toxic substances, certified handlers for that, pretty much for these things here. The conditions here, though, also mention that it does not include agri-chemicals or vertebrate toxic agents. So for myself personally, I do not certify VTAs or agri-chemicals either. But just bear with me, I'll just show you some of our other staff's scopes of authorization, which should clarify a few things for all of us. Now, another thing to note there, the life cycles, disposal, manufacture, storage, and use as well. Okay, so that's pretty much my scope. So if we just move along a wee bit, and let's just check out Elizabeth's scope. Okay, so here we have it. So yes, a lot more impressive. And this is just for certified handlers. So as you can see here, Elizabeth, or in other words, Chemsafety, Elizabeth is able to certify you for agri-chemicals, which is fine. But also very important to note the life cycles there. So one life cycle that we can see that has been omitted in this particular scope of authorization is indeed the use. The use is not there at all. Okay, so we can certify agri-chemicals, disposal, manufacture, storage, transportation, but not the use. Okay, so that's an important one to note. However, for the regular industrial stuff, that's fine. The conditions there, it states, does not include handlers in control of transport of hazardous substances on land in bulk, in a tank, wagon, or a transportable container. Okay, so that's just an important one to note as well. So it doesn't include, we can't certify for those particular types, but just bear with me because we still have Janet's one to come up as well, so we can pretty much cover those things off. So you can also see the life cycles there. Now, if we just skip over a wee bit there to the fumigants, again, you can see here that indeed Elizabeth does have authorised scope to cover fumigants or certify for your fumigants on site also. Now, the thing is, you can see here, these are the conditions. So it is pretty much covering off all of these fumigants. And these you probably find are probably the more common ones that are used out there in industry, you know, the aluminium phosphide, magnesium phosphide, etc., methyl bromide, ethane dinitrile, etc., so on and so forth. So we can see there that, yes, indeed, Elizabeth has those scopes on board. Now, the next one across for the vertebrate toxic agents, aka VTAs. Now, it's important as well with some of these VTAs. This is generally the first step before acquiring your controlled substance license as well. So this is an important thing to note. If you need a CSL for certain substances, it's likely you'll have to get a certified handler for certain substances before you can continue on with your CSL journey, especially if they're class 6.1 or 6.1A or 6.1B VTAs there. So you can see here her list. So again, very formidable list there, and including the potassium cyanides and sodium cyanides, the sodium fluoroacetate there as well. And now the important thing to note here is with the life cycle, it's not for the use, it's only for disposal, manufacture, storage and transportation. Okay, so those are the scopes there for Elizabeth. So I don't know if you end up watching a replay of this, if you need to take any notes, you can just quite easily pause about now if you want and take some of the notes. Excellent. So let's check out Janet's scopes for certified handlers. So again, we have similar to what you saw previously with Elizabeth's scopes. You can see there the agrochemicals are the same. However, we do have that omission of use. For the class 6s, there are no conditions. So Janet has the disposal, manufacture, storage, transport and use. Life cycles, scope of authorization for any of those industrial substances. So there are no conditions there, so it's pretty straightforward. And then, as we can see here for fumigants, again, those conditions are just the following substances. Okay, so it's pretty much similar to Elizabeth's. However, you can see here in this condition, it says the certificate of handlers of ethane dinitrile is for the life cycles, use, storage, transport, and disposal. Okay. The certification of handlers for all other fumigants listed above is for life cycles, manufacture, storage, transport, and disposal. So in other words, even though down here it says use, it's just important to note that it's actually just the ethane dinitrile that has that scope for use. The other fumigants do not have the scope for use. But luckily for us, that's okay, because we have Elizabeth that does have that scope that covers use for those fumigants, so that's not a problem at all. And then again, vertebrate toxic agents, very similar as we've seen in the previous slide for Elizabeth, same type of scope. But again, you'll notice there is no use of these particular substances. Okay, so if you need to take a note of that, and if you're going to watch it in a replay, I'll give you a chance to pause that now, so you take those notes, and we'll move on to the next slide. So just summary of these scopes, okay, for certified handlers. So just important to note that we do not have scope to certify the following. So the use of agrochemicals. So it's important that, in the slide previous where we showed you where to find someone for agrochemicals, that you'll have to go through the list to ensure that you're looking and you're finding the person that's able to help you for the scope of use of agrochemicals. Now, the use of agrochemicals, there are a few, there's not too many in the South Island, but they are there. Also, we do not have scope for explosives, and we also do not have scope to certify the use of vertebrate toxic agents. And also refer to the previous slides for the fumigants and the VTA. So again, the fumigants and VTAs, I mean, especially with the fumigants thing, you remember that it was Elizabeth that did have scope for use, and then Janet and I had limited scopes for the fumigants there as well. But yeah, that was pretty straightforward. And I think it's probably important for me to also just allude to a couple of slides back there. If I just pop back, yeah. bear with me here. If we just pop back here, another important thing to note that is when you're applying these filters, when we start off, there are 99 compliance certifiers in the country at this stage. When we put in some of the filters, it drops down to 43. So there are 43 in the country that can do certified handlers. And for the acutely toxic substances, there are 30 in the country that can do this. Now, if you apply filters like agri-chemicals or something else, or if you were to apply filters like even for explosives, this greatly diminishes. Okay, so there will be a lot less. And even then, you'll still have to check for their scopes of life cycle to see if they can indeed actually help you for your situation there. So that is a certified handlers. Now, the next little thing to look into are our locations, there. So just checking that out, locations. Okay, so here we have them, the 5 scopes, 5 different scopes there for locations, or sorry, the 5 different subtypes or subclasses. They have explosives, flammable liquids and gases. You can also do locations for flammable solids, and also oxidizers, toxics, and corrosives. So information for this can be found in parts 10, 12, 13 of the and of course there is information and other about other aspects of certification for these as well. Now, explosives are in different parts as well. But often this compliance can be threshold driven. So moving on from that, if we have a wee look at exactly how we can go about doing this, of course, you're going to click on those same things again. We're also going to, you'll be able to sort of see there that we can change it to location instead of certified handlers up here. And then applying the filters if you just want it for toxic and corrosives. So again, just noticing there how these the number of people that can help you in the country definitely diminish, and as you sort of become more specialised in what it is that you need the location compliance for, again it diminishes even further. So looking across there, and as I was mentioning before, bit more impressive if we have a look at Janet's list of things that she's able to help with when it comes to compliance. We can see there, we just click on the box that says locations on the plus, sorry, and there we have all of those locations that she's able to help for. So classes 6 and 8, classes 5.2, so of course she's able to help you with the organic peroxides, which are quite special. I mean, if you do need any sort of a revision on 5.2 classifications and all of that, you can pretty much find that on one of our earlier webinars that we held. I think it was way back in 2020, sorry. So 5.2 is in our organic peroxides. So we also have, Janet also has the scope to authorize certification for classes 2.1.1, 2.1.2, and 3.1. So in other words, flammable gases, aerosols, and liquids, and also liquid desensitized explosives, 3.2s, and also 4, so flammable solids, as well as class 5.1.1s and 5.1.2, so oxidizing liquids, solids, and also gases. You'll also note with Janet's scope of authorization, there are no conditions. So yeah, so Janet is pretty much good to go to aid you with any of your certification needs regarding locations there. Okay, so that's good. So if we just bump that across there, and again, let's look at Elizabeth. So even again, impressive. So a whole list there, as you can see, of different scopes that Elizabeth can offer you for your certification requirements. So again, if we were to click on location, we can see there it's pretty much similar to what we saw with Janet's list of things that they're able to help you with. However, there is a slight, or there are conditions around Elizabeth's scope with regards to flammable gases, flammable aerosols, and flammable liquids. So 2.1.1s, 2.1.2s, and 3.1s. And these are the conditions here. So if we just need to take time to check that out, you might want to rewatch this in a replay and just pause on that, take a screenshot of it or whatever you need. So then take some notes, so then you can actually see what those limitations are, what the conditions are for Elizabeth's scope of authorization for these certificates. other than that, they're all pretty much the same as what we saw previously. So you can see there the conditions, all these things there. Okay, that's good. Okay, so and that is what we're able to provide for locations. So the next little thing that we can kind of see there that we'll look into, and it's another service that we provide here at Chemsafety, of course, are our stationary container systems. So just looking into those, I guess you can call them the 10 types of subclasses for these container systems, burners, and then of course we have burning of 3.1 substances, compliance plan, design dispensers, fabricators, installation, repair, alteration and maintenance, transfer point pipework, and of course vaporizers. And just as an additional thing on top of the stationary container systems, we also have existing stationary container system compliance plan. So information regarding location, regarding these things can be found on, sorry, this will type right there, it can be found in another area there. So we've got stationary container systems. As you can see here, stationary tanks are used for storing or supplying hazardous liquids that are normally located at specific places. Stationary tanks include all parts and materials that help maintain the structure and integrity of tanks, any means of closing the tanks, for example, a lid or fitted cover, any component of the tanks intended to protect the contents of the tank from harm, for example, lightning protection, and any other components that are an integral part of the tanks, for example, a liquid height indicator, heating coil, or internal valve. Okay. So these are what those systems include. And if we look at the next slide there, we can see, and it's the same sort of way that you'll find this on the website, how you're able to look up the stationary container systems. Again, just looking at how the numbers there in the country, how they definitely drop right down when you get more specified into certain types of stationary container systems. And this number here, it fully depends on what one of those 10 subtypes that you'll look into. So some of them are a lot less than 27 people that can help you there, or 27 providers. Okay, so looking into this here, so again, if we click on the plus that says stationary container systems, we can see Janet's scope of authorization there. So it includes, the top one there, as well as installation. Now, those conditions for installation, as you can see there, are all listed. Again, I'd suggest that if you were to replay this or watch this in a replay, press pause now, so then you can actually you'll be able to see what those conditions are. But in a nutshell, as I was told earlier, Janet did mention that it's to do with mainly to do with below ground fuel tanks is what her authorization specializes in. So this is something that Janet will be able to help you and will be the those below ground tanks. So as it states, Janet is able to certify existing below ground fuel tanks for service stations with tanks up to 60,000 litres. So, read through all of that information there, you'll be able to see that that's what that pretty much covers. And if we now check out what Elizabeth has to offer, okay, so there's a lot more going on here with Elizabeth regarding stationary container systems. And in a nutshell, Elizabeth is, as you can certify diesel systems, so tank boilers and burners there. So you can see there. So again, if you'd like to just take a moment to pause this screen and just check out what her authorization, what Elizabeth's authorization does cover. Now, another thing as well, Elizabeth also covers existing stationary container systems compliance plans. That's an additional thing that her scope covers. Okay, so those are the different scopes. Those are the different types of certificate that we're able, and there are different types of services that we can provide regarding certification for your site to get compliant. So we're able to provide all of those services. So, of course, one being certified handlers, the second one being locations, and thirdly there, our stationary container systems also. So moving along, we can see now, of course, there are many other things. The other types of certificates that are available that you'll be able to find. Of course, if you were to use that same system where you find the approved fillers, you'll click on Apply Filter, and then from Approved Fillers, you'll look at any of the different subtypes of approved fillers. Click on that filter, and then you'll be able to find people that can help you. But of course, as it states here, approved handlers, this is people filling containers with gases under pressure, including cylinders, aerosols, and non-refillable containers, must be trained and hold an approved filler compliance certificate. And an approved filler compliance certificate must be issued by a compliance certifier. Okay, so these are LPG fillers, even compressed non-hazardous gases or compressed air even. You need to be an approved filler to be able to fill these vessels, basically. Types of gas containers filled by approved fillers there. You can see the industrial gas cylinders, LPG, self-contained breathing apparatus, and also for underwater, but also for the fire service and industrial application. Fire extinguishers as well, you need to be an approved filler for that. Aerosol cylinders, non-refillable cylinders, and also paintball cylinders. Oh, that's quite interesting. Fill paintball cylinders of more than 500 millilitres water capacity, you must be an approved filler. Well, there you go. It's quite interesting. Okay, so those are the approved fillers. And then we go on to the next slot there. We have our tank, wagon, and transportable containers. And there are 3 subclasses for these things: design, in service, and pre-commissioning. So if, using that same system that we saw previously, if you were to use that system, you'll find that indeed these ones sort of very few and far between. So I think I've got a slide coming up for that. The driver's transport. Okay, yeah, that's good. You find information for tank wagons, part 16. Okay, that's great as well. A tank wagon is a vehicle used to transport liquid or gaseous hazardous substances. Okay, so I guess this is that difference between a tank wagon and a stationary container system there, or transportable containers. Tank wagons have a tank that's permanently fixed to the vehicle or a tank attached to a trailer. So looking at that, I mean, if you were to use that, okay, so tank wagons and transportable containers, so any of those subtypes, there's actually only 11 in the country. Okay, so I'm just thinking if you do need any, and this goes for any type of compliance certification. If this is something that you need, don't wait for the last minute. Don't wait till you're nearly expired, because as you can see there, the numbers aren't very many. So for you to be able to find one that can do it for you urgently, you'll be very lucky. So and make sure you book all of these people well in advance, so then there's enough time for you to get all the documentation together. If there are some things that you might need to tweak a little bit, it gives you time to ensure that you have time to become compliant before you're authorised, or before your certificate runs out, basically, or expires. The other one, and this one here, very interesting topic, explosives. Often when I'm doing courses and things, people come up saying, "Oh, do you certify explosives?" And I think, no, I don't. And again, there's only a handful of people out there that actually that do this authorization as well. But as you can see there, these are the 7 types of subclasses within that scope of authorization. So you've got blast, over pressure and hazard, certified handler for explosives, container design, detonation and deflagration in darkness, location, outdoor pyrotechnics display, and readily movable container construction. It's an interesting thing about the detonation and darkness thing. But that's something, if you're involved in that, you'll understand why there are requirements around that. And I think I overheard someone saying something about how in the old days it was always a traditional thing not to sort of have to use any kind of explosives in the night or something. I'm not too sure. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. You can see there are the different 7 types of subclasses. And as I alluded to before, this is not my scope of authorization. So, yeah, but it's important that we know what this is. And when we look at that, if we have a look at the number of people that can help us with the explosives, there you have it. And that's for all subtypes. There are 7 in the country. So, if you need to get your fire, and of course that includes for pyrotechnics. So I'm pretty sure that the ones that are able to certify for pyrotechnics outdoor activities, they'll be in hot demand in the months leading up to things like Guy Fawkes or even New Year's as well. So yeah, make sure you get in quick there to get these people booked. Otherwise, you may miss out on getting your location compliant for that particular event or whatever it might be. So the next one that we have there, of course, are our cylinders. So we can get so you can be certified for the cylinders you have on site. So there are 5 types of subclasses there. So design, verification, importation. Well, that's the UNRTDG, so the DG stuff, as well as importation, just regular importation, LPG fittings, and also pre-commissioning. And if you were to just have a wee look at who are able to help you with your certification for your cylinders, again, only 13 in the entire country. So it's an important thing to note. Now, there may be confusion around this. Often there will be guidelines that you can sort of find that will be able to help you around, as it states here, cylinders. But that includes any of these topics that we just covered. Anything from the cylinders, the explosives, tank, wagon, transport containers, approved fillers, all of that kind of stuff. You can find additional information on WorkSafe's website with regards to those different scopes there. So that pretty much draws us to a conclusion to this month's webinar with regards to compliance certification and what type of compliance is out there. So thank you very much. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them now. I'll just also just to reiterate some of the things that we're definitely involved in, just so we can sort of clarify some of these things there too. So where are we? Just have a look at the slide itself. Here we go. These are the ones that Chemsafety are definitely able to help you with. So again, there was a Q&A thing, questions there. If there are any questions, that's fine. If you have questions, any underlying questions that you might be a bit shy about asking in front of the group, that's fine as well. Send it through to us, email it through to us at info@chemsafety.co.nz, and we'll definitely be able to help. But other than that, if there are no questions, I'll let you get going. Thank you for attending. Dwayne.